Hey everybody, it's Andy Hariver again here with My Side of the Fence podcast. Today we have a guy who I feel like almost everybody in the city knows, TJ Rodriquez. He's here in a personal capacity, but everybody knows his job. So we'll start this the way we always do. TJ, tell me a little bit about how you got here.
Well, yeah, first, Andy, thanks for having me. When you reached out, I excitedly accepted the offer. And then I had to recall that I also, in my role as a police officer with the city of Manassas, I probably should check to make sure that it's okay. So the chief was, yeah, absolutely. The chief was definitely okay with it. In fact, when I expressed to him that I had been given the invitation, he had expressed that he was actually coming on that day. So,
right.
Just before we get started and tell you a little bit about myself, I know that you love our building on Grand Avenue, and
it's growing on me.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyways, in other podcasts, they sometimes guests bring gifts, and the host gives gifts.
We don't have gifts yet.
Well, you did offer me some water.
I gave you some water.
Yeah, and though I'm still driving a company car, I can't partake in some of the beverage opportunities that Dr. Perez and our mayor of Manassas, Rich Myers, was engaging in.
Yeah, Perez actually brought some booze. Meyer expected that it would be here.
But I wanted to also, I think it's important because of your service to the city, that it's also important to present you with our Department Challenge coin.
All right, well, thank you.
And again, it has the beautiful John
cool.
John D. Connor Public Safety Building on the front.
Yeah.
Though doesn't show the Grant Avenue of where you love it to be, but yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So to kind of go back to your question, like anything else. I'm not, I've been in Virginia for a while, but I'm not what I guess you would call true Virginian. Here in the Northern Virginia area, is that really a thing anymore? So
many transient people up here.
Yeah.
For the government and the service. And
Yeah. So I was actually, I was brought here by service of the United States Marine Corps.
Oh, yeah?
I'm originally from and born and raised in San Francisco, California.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So born in the Bay Area. So I am a diehard Niners fan. My grandfather, he's a big time Joe Montana. I'm more of a Steve Young guy.
Right.
So born and raised in the Bay Area. Raised by a single mom, and
you still have family in the Bay Area?
I do. So I have a sister that lives up in the northern portion of California, and like many things in California, you have to get out of California to get to the northern side of California. So she lives up in the high northern area, and my other sister, she's actually over in this area.
Cool.
Her job relocated here as well. But I have still a surviving uncle and a surviving aunt that still live in the Bay Area.
That's cool.
My aunt lives just near the Cow Palace.
Yeah.
And my uncle lives in the San Mateo near Stanford, Palo Alto area.
Right.
So, unfortunately, my mom has passed in 2016.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And my stepdad lives up in Northern California as well. Don't really have much of a relationship with him, but yeah, as I mentioned, I came through here by the United States Marine Corps.
So when did you go in the Corps?
Yeah, right. So that's even
right out of high school.
Wow, interesting story. At the age of 13 is when I first was interested in the Marine Corps because they really have cool uniforms.
The Marines are proud of their uniforms.
We are. And I came across those postcards that you put in the box that you have an interest in
I remember those.
in service. And believe it or not, at the age of 13, I did that. I think it was at a mall. I can't recall specifically. But a few weeks later, I received a typewritered
actual letter
that was typed on a typewriter.
Right.
And when I tell this story to most of the kids, they don't understand what a typewriter is, right? And it was signed in pen. The recruiting person also sent me a flyer to show me how to do proper sit-ups, pull-ups, and jumping jacks.
Wow.
But also thanked me for being interested in the service at the age of 13. However, I had to wait a little bit. But interesting enough, I have to give credit to the Marine Corps. Every year, around the same time, I received another letter with another pamphlet of how to do PFT-related stuff and a sticker. So obviously they thought they had me hook and sinker, and which I think they did, because at 17, I convinced my mom that I wanted to join. I entered into the early enlistment program, which gave me the opportunity to get promoted to PFC out of boot camp.
Right.
But when it came time to actually sign on the dotted line to allow me to go, my mom had some reservations.
I bet.
And she brought an uncle of mine who was also passed, but he was in the Army.
He was in the Army, yeah.
And so he wasn't much convincing, because I had two other uncles that were in the Marine Corps. One had served in Vietnam. And so through his convincing styles, I made sure my mom signed on the dotted line. And I spent my 18th birthday at San Diego on the Yellow Steps.
Yeah.
And so at 17, I was on the Yellow Steps or Yellow Footprints, mind you, and then got in the Marine Corps. I signed up to be in the infantry because I saw this cool video of people riding Zodiacs, and that's what I wanted to do. And back then, they didn't give you an MOS and reconnaissance. You actually had to test into it.
Oh, okay.
And so when I went to, after I got out of boot camp, every Marine goes to the School of Infantry, because every Marine is an infantryman.
Yeah.
So I spent several weeks at the School of Infantry, or they call it, I think they call it MCT, Marine Combat Training. And then I went to School of Infantry, which was just more training in infantry. And then I got assigned to my first Marine unit, which I was hoping to go somewhere, but I just went over the hill in San Diego at Camp Pendleton, and I was assigned to the 1st Marine Division, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. And so that was my first unit, and I was with them for about 3 years. We did two deployments overseas. Our first deployment was to Okinawa. And then we were deployed under the 31st MUSOC. We were deployed to the Philippines. That was during the Marcos era.
Right.
We were the operational unit at Subic Bay for the embassy if, for whatever reason, we needed to evacuate the embassy.
Right.
And then we were also kind of a security element for the base, because we were withdrawing forces. And that was we were the last military operational unit there, because they had closed down the Air Force Base, and there were some challenges that had happened when they closed that down. So, so came back from that tour, got to then do the high-speed, low-drag stuff, got to go to Coronado and earn the title of Amphibious Reconnaissance Marine. Pretty tough course.
Yeah,
had to be a good swimmer. You had to be able to get to places pretty quickly. And then when we came back to my unit, I was thinking I would join the reconnaissance unit or some type of high-speed unit.
Right.
I got sent to the pool. I got sent to the pool to train Marines how to swim. So that didn't last too long. I was there for pretty much the summer, and then we deployed again back to Okinawa. But this time it was a different deployment. It was a kind of a tour of a tour. It was the 50th anniversary of World War II, and we got on a ship, and we basically went from island to island, doing kind of parades and things of that nature.
Right.
And so that was really an interesting time. We visited the island of Tinian, which presented a lot of historical stuff. We got to see the site where they actually had stored the atomic bomb,
right?
And we got to see the airfield where the bombers had taken off from, and so it was really cool. We had this crazy lieutenant. There was this myth on the island that there was a B-52 that had crashed and was somewhere still on the island, and he thought he could find it. Luckily, we had a good staff sergeant that put him in check, but.
Right.
After that deployment, I had re-enlisted, and I was at that point hoping to get a high-speed, low-drag assignment. I had wanted to do security forces. Basically, it's a kind of a unit that had basically secures nuclear sites and kind of a quick response team or QRT team
right.
For anything that happens. But again, the Marine Corps had different plans for me. They decided to send me to, and I even re-enlisted a year early, thinking if I can re-enlist a year early, I'll get what I want.
I'll get what I want.
Again, the Marine Corps had different plans for me. So they sent me here to Quantico, Virginia in the November of 1994. First time that I'd been on the East Coast. And I checked in, it was right over Thanksgiving. And so there was not a lot of Marines around. And so when I checked in, I was given a couple different options of assignments. My first assignment was you can go to OCS to train new officers. I said, absolutely not. And then I was offered the opportunity to go train newly promoted lieutenants at their TBS, which is their tactical basic school, and I said absolutely not. And then they said we only have 2 more jobs for you, and I was like, okay. The one job was base maintenance, and I was like, definitely not doing that.
That's a drag.
Yeah, I'm not cutting lawns for the rest of my life,
right.
Or at least this particular tour. And then they offered me an option to go and work with the military police, and that really intrigued me. Again, I was still very young. I was barely 21 at the time.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, I'll try that. And the assignment with that kind of propelled me to kind of my law enforcement interest. I was assigned as the non-commissioned officer in charge of a return to military custody platoon. And what that really meant was Marines who didn't want to be Marines anymore were brought to this dispersed location where they were either administratively or punitively discharged from the Marine Corps. Right. And we oversaw their process.
Huh. And then after that, you didn't re-enlist?
So again, life sometimes throws you curves. I did believe that I was going to be a career Marine, but I met my now wife. Interesting enough, I met her here in the city of Manassas.
Wow.
Yes, it's a very interesting story. I won't go into all the details, but I was with some Marine buddies, and we were going to a house over off of Racket Circle, and that was before GPS, so we had no idea where we were going.
Right.
It was night and dark, and as we were driving on Hastings Drive, right around the bend, across from Kingsley Mill Park, a car pulled up side of us, and there was a nice young-looking girl in the passenger seat. I waved. She came back around and introduced herself, and we exchanged telephone numbers, landline numbers, and from there we hit it off. And we spent a lot of time during that time because the first time I was actually snowed in for a blizzard of that particular year. And we got to know each other really well. And a few months later, I had proposed, and in June of 1996, we were married here at Nelson Park.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man. And was she from the city?
So she's not from the city of Manassas, but she is local. She was born and raised in Ruston. Yeah. However, her family, there's a family, she's a family of 6. They were actually, they lived in Manassas Park off of Drake Court. Okay. And so she's quite familiar with the area in general.
Right. So how did you get from the Corps to, has your whole career been spent in the city? So
again, I've had a very interesting pathway into how I became a police officer with the city of Manassas. So after I got married in 96, I had shortly received orders to actually go to Hawaii. I was finally going to get my chance at becoming a reconnaissance Marine. Right. I was actually going to be assigned to the reconnaissance unit out at Hawaii. I had called some buddies out there. Their rotation was pretty tough. Normally, I was used to 18-month rotations. They were on a 12-month rotation. And when I discussed that with my wife, she wasn't too keen on that idea. And she wasn't too keen on leaving what she knew here. Yeah. And we were actually, we were living here in the city of Manassas. Our first apartment was at Battery Heights. We lived on Nittany Drive, one day I was sitting on the couch, and I was kind of thumbing through the channels, and I think it was Comcast at the time, and the city had a Comcast channel that ran different things on it, and I came across an ad for an auxiliary police officer. And one of the things on the auxiliary police officer ad says that if you want your property tax to be covered, volunteer as an auxiliary police officer.
We don't still do that, do we?
Auxiliary police officer program. We currently don't take any applicants. We still have one officer that his name is Mike Flowers. Great guy. He has been doing it for over 20 plus years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Mike's sometimes you may see him in Old Town. He does a lot of our special events, but Mike Flowers is a great guy. So kind of again, speaking to my path, I had spoken with some of my bosses at my Marine Corps bosses and said, hey, I've been given this opportunity with the city. I had interviewed with Captain Crisp. He was my person that I interviewed with. I barely passed the test at the time. And so I was given the opportunity. There were two options. You could go to the academy full time, which that was not viable for the fact that I had a full time job is in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, you're still in the Marines.
Yeah, and but I had a captain that was very supportive of me doing this, and so the other option is that we were partners with another criminal justice academy down in Rappahannock. And they offered a nighttime and a weekend class.
Oh, wow.
So I want to say it was Tuesdays and Thursdays from like 6 to 9 and then all day on Saturday. So I did that for a full year.
Oh, that's a lot, man.
So, that was in September of 1997 that I did the training. And then I was sworn in by our city clerk on September 8th, which is a very special day. That's my mom's birthday. I was sworn in as an auxiliary police officer on September 8th, 1998. And I started my FTO or field training program, and I had various people that I learned from. The main person that I rode with pretty regularly was Cindy Van Oppen.
Oh yeah.
She was my first training officer. She was a sergeant at the time. So I spent most of my time on her shift, getting my hours in. And then some time had passed, and it was about 12 to 18 months from getting out of the Marine Corps, and I knew I was getting out. And so we were seeing some changes here in the city as well. Chief Tucko at the time was the chief, but he had announced that he was going to be retiring.
Right.
And then the city then started looking for another chief. And then we had gotten word that Chief Skinner from Fairfax City was selected and was going to be starting. And he came in just at the same time as I was offered a full-time job. And I had to fight for my job, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. So the Marine Corps has a great program where you can separate from the Marine Corps up to 60 days early. However, I needed 90 days because of the way the academy started. And so I had a lieutenant that was in charge of our hiring talk to Chief Skinner. And again, the chief's just coming in.
Right.
So he doesn't know me from Adam. And so he basically said, we'll give him a shot. And so the Marine Corps gave me the 60 days. The chief allowed me, since I was already certified, we'll put him through another field training program. If he does well, we'll just keep moving forward. If there's some things that need to be done, we can send him back to the academy. So I'm always very thankful, Chief Skinner, for giving me that opportunity. He didn't have to. He could have easily have passed.
Sure.
As you heard from the chief in his presentation or his interview that posted today, he talked about during that time period, police jobs are hard to come by.
Yeah, that really surprised me.
Oh, yeah.
What did you say? It was like 1 out of 300 or something?
Yeah, so I don't know how many number I was, but I was just very fortunate. One, I met the threshold to get past the test when I did the auxiliary program. And then also, the fact that Chief Skinner being new and I had demonstrated that I was dedicated because, again, the lieutenant that oversaw me directly, he allowed me to come up to the city at least once a day or once a week to ride with. And so I had many hours in that I had volunteered. So I had definitely earned my car tax relief.
That's wild to me. I mean, he, you look up law and order in the dictionary, and there's a picture of Skinner in there.
Yeah. So
He would not put up with any of our bullshit.
no, and he was he was very polished.
Yes.
He was very prepared. I've actually in the old building, if you would walk onto the chief's side of the building, especially on Mondays or nights that he had to present to council, you could actually see him practicing in the mirror.
I believe it. I believe it. I always appreciated that guy, he was thoroughly prepared.
Yeah.
Very little of, I don't know, or I can get an answer. There's nothing wrong with I'll get you an answer. But that I don't recall that really happening much with him. And we went through some pretty tumultuous stuff in that first term when he was still the chief.
Yeah. So again, he took his job very serious. He held us to the same accord, and with regards to that our reputation really mattered in the community.
Yeah.
And if we as officers did something that was, wrong or incorrect, he saw that as a reflection of himself as well. And he made it known. I'll just say I have a file of disciplinary points in my file that if you read some of Chief Skinner, he was a really good writer as well.
Oh, was he?
Oh yeah. Especially when he was correcting you. He made you feel, holy crap, I definitely disappointed this guy. And he did it in a way that didn't demean you to the point, but he made it very clear that that you were not only a representation of yourself, but you're a representation of the department, the city, and him. So,
yeah.
and he meant that. So that was,
I have no doubt.
And as you heard from the chief, we unfortunately lost him this past year. So
I saw that.
So that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, he was a good dude. I've worked in a lot of different places with a lot of different people, and I have never really run into anyone like him until I got elected. I've worked with plenty of. Was he in the service?
I want to say maybe. I think he was in the Army, but I don't recall. I do recall back in the old building. He was connected to the city even before he was chief. There's a couple of pictures of him attending some events where he's in the older pictures.
Right.
And so obviously he was committed to the city from the beginning. I remember where he lived off of Long Street, and then when he moved over to Ben's Way. So.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I know that is because back in the day, one of the jobs of the newer officers is you had to deliver the council's mail.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So you had to know where everyone lived,
Right.
And they always gave it to the new guy because it was a great way to learn geography.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And again, still don't understand why we did this, but it was a job. You had to go to the city hall, collect it from the city manager's administrative assistant, and then go and deliver.
And it's always in some random envelope that they reuse.
And there were some that had bigger envelopes than others, and it's like, okay, and you had to do that in between calls for service, and
Right.
so
is that right?
Yeah, and you also had to be very careful who you chose to go to first. So I always went to Mayor Gillum's house first because his wife would always take his, and so didn't want to enter late at her house.
Yeah,
But Councilman Randolph is always interesting. I always left his on the porch. He never answered his door.
I just had at my office, when my office was in Old Town, I just hung a white mailbox on the side of the building and put city.
Yeah.
And then they just dumped it in there.
So
there's never anything classified in there. It's just city stuff.
Yeah. So luckily now they get all their documents uploaded to their iPads.
Yeah. That was wild. And then he retired, and we picked Keene, and I think that's good for him. And that interview was pretty wild because he's the chief of police. Well, I'm going to be a city manager for like a year and a half, and then go back to being the chief of police. That was tough, but he's good. I feel like that was successful because he's built a successful team. Mm-hmm. They can step into the hole and make it all work.
Yeah, and again he I think what is really good about that perspective too is he had the institutional knowledge as well, and I think that benefits the city.
Oh, heck yes,
big time. And I know that the city was making strides and efforts to try to do a search to find a city manager, but though the 16 months or so that he was the interim city manager, I know it was challenging on him as well because, he's a cop's cop. He wants to be at the police department, and sometimes he would come and visit, but again, he, like you said, he entrusted those that he put in responsibilities to be the assistant chiefs. He was very fortunate that he was able to reach out to Captain Lawler to come back and take on that responsibility. And that's not an easy task for someone who's retired and working part-time as one of our school resource officers to then take on, the highest position and still be challenged. I think we were transitioning, and maybe my timeline's a little off, but we were transitioning into the new building at the same time.
That's probably all right.
And so there were some challenges there because anytime you would go into a new building, there's going to be some last minute punch out
Something's
stuff.
Wrong.
I think the elevator issue has always been an elevator issue. I think we've solved our elevator issue, but I think City Hall now has its own elevator issue. So, but here nor there, we're seeing some really good things happen. We saw some really great things under his reign as interim city manager. I think the mayor and the city council did a great thing by, picking an internal person to get us through that time. And obviously, there's been some really great movement with a lot of things that Mr. Burke has done, even in the few months that he's come on board. Because again, he has that institutional knowledge. He was previously the public works director. Had gone away and had done some experience as a city manager, and then was coerced back, I guess you want to say, to come back and be the public works person again. But again, it shows in the things that I have opportunities to see as a city employee. We're in a good place when it comes to our public works and the things that we do as public safety. But like any other government, I think we could do better. And we definitely want to hear from our public. We try our best to make things accessible.
I feel like I've talked to my share of people. It's amazing what people will tell you once you have a podcast just for the asking. A lot of it I don't need, but my sense is that as long as the electrical issues over at the Battery Heights station stay under control and the data centers don't mess up the apple cart, I feel like people, there's the South Grand issue, and we can talk about that if you want, but when it comes to the balance of the government, public safety, law enforcement, all that, I feel like people are pretty happy with what they get, and I don't know that I've had anybody tell me like they don't feel safe, right? I don't get that sense at all.
Sure.
I think people here are pretty happy with what they get. Now, they might not be happy with individual decisions of the council, and that happens. If you're that unhappy about it, you know what you need to do? You need to cowboy up and run for office.
It's interesting you say about cowboy up and running for office. I'm sure we'll touch on this, but I am one of, I think Jimmy says one of 15 of the cattlemen. I'm not sure how I officially became a cattleman. I tell the group I'm more of a calf, but but I think in any group, because we have, as you like to say, we have too many lawyers in the group. I think any group needs the town cop, right? And so we might get into that, how I came about that group. But to your point about the public works and the electric aspects with the substation at Battery Heights, I think that's a really good testament of the city's response. And I think during that time, Chief Keene was also in that interim role where we had some surplus money and they ended up buying that extra piece of equipment rather than renting it. And I think that'll serve us in the long run.
I hope so.
Because who knows what's going to happen with these data centers?
They're going to build more of them. That's what's going to happen.
Well, hopefully not here in the city. There's not much space to build them.
We're kind of out of dirt.
But what I also liked is though there were some things that could have been done better with regards to our response to that issue. I think there were some positive things that came about it. The city is now very responsive when they have electric outages. I will have to say, for someone who lives in California and sometimes there's rolling blackouts, the fact that the city's pretty responsive and we don't lose power as much during major storms. Again, I live here in the city of Manassas. I live in the Wellington community. I can probably count on both of my hands the times that I've lived here that actually power has gone out.
We went through, in Old Town, we went through a pretty rough patch where the power was going out with some regularity. And, I'm a nerd. I run an IT business, right? And we have clients in those areas that were affected by the blackout. And, it cost them actual money. It damaged some of their equipment and stuff like that. And I felt like initially the uptake by the city was kind of slow, but after some point, it really did go up another level and they moved on it. So I think, and that happens. That happens. And I know that equipment is probably not easy to come by either. It's not like any electrical equipment just grows on trees anymore. Those, I don't know about now, but those transformers out at Micron, I think they had to order them more than a year in advance.
Sure.
Because they built them in China. So I know it's not easy, and I'm thankful for the efforts those guys put in.
Yeah, and like I said, I think with Mr. Burke coming on board with that public works background, I think there's an emphasis, and as the chief mentioned, each department head also plays the role of assistant city manager,
right? And
they have kind of like a pod of responsibility. He indicated that he oversees public safety and health, or health and human services with social services, and then you have Matt, and then you have others that are responsible for the other things. But I think that just kind of goes to show that everyone's vested.
Yeah.
And one thing I like to see is that one of the things that Mr. Burke has continued with is every Friday we get an updated city manager's update. And it kind of helps us as staff and employees to kind of get to understand what's going on besides the city. And him and the team in the city have done a pretty good job. But the challenging thing is that's not necessarily accessible to the regular public.
Well, no.
And again, I think the other challenging thing is that, if you have interest, you have to spend a lot of time researching and reading this information from this page and that page, and it can get daunting, especially if you're also trying to do things, you're trying to do a honey-do list that your wife may have for you.
Right.
So it's not easy to read everything, but I think the city is making progress. I don't always want to go sit at city council meetings. But again, if I just want to kind of get a purview of what's going to be presented, the city now makes it available to see the presentations, and you can kind of thumb through it. Though you're not going to hear the comments, the dialogue. But another great opportunity is if you have time and opportunity, you can go back and watch it if you want.
Yeah.
Especially if it interests you. If it doesn't interest you, then I don't waste my time sitting in the seats in the gallery.
No, I think city they do a pretty good job of being responsive and disseminating information. I think that, like, for instance, out here on Cockrell, we had a couple of accidents. Well, the problem is that the people were parking their cars too close to the intersection. And, I emailed the city about it, and they had some guys out here, and they did a survey or whatever and pushed it back. I mean, they did it just for the asking. So I feel like they're pretty receptive to people's needs. I mean, there's inevitably there's a bump in the road, right?
Sure.
But overall, I feel like they do a pretty good job.
Yeah, and as you heard the chief say yesterday, with his presentation, parking is one of those complaints that we get a lot of.
Parking and speeding. I mean, right?
Parking and speeding. Fortunately, in the role that I play, or not play, but but the role that I do within the department, my role is slightly different. I'm not necessarily involved in the.
What are you doing now?
So I'm more in the community engagement and community outreach. But to the point of parking, we've tried to address parking with these parking districts.
It's hard.
It is hard, especially for some of the older single-family homes over in the Weems neighborhoods. I know on the Stonewall Road area down by the pool, they tried a very innovative way of trying to create more parking opportunities by angling the parkings.
Right.
And so I'm not sure how many more parking spaces that created. I know within the Georgetown South community, they tried to address some of the concerns related to allowing additional parking permit in a very fair, equitable way. So again, I think, as you said, the city is responsive to the needs. And again, unfortunately, we're not going to solve everyone's problems.
No.
And though I'm sure that the city would like to, it's just not feasible. And sometimes there has to be compromise, and I think that's where the challenge is sometimes.
Yeah, no, I get it. So community outreach, does that mean, like, do you go into the schools and stuff like that?
Yeah, so my background, and I know I didn't really get into my background. So I've been, as you asked earlier, I've been with the city my whole time in my career. So I spent 7 years in the United States Marine Corps, and then I've been with the Manassas City Police Department. At the end of this month, I'll have been with the city for over 27 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all that. That's amazing.
And
man.
with the city alone. So
Right.
I've not been with any other police department. So from the time I started as an auxiliary in 1997, which doesn't count towards my retirement apparently, but from 1998 until present day, I've been with the city for 27 years, and I've had various roles. So I've worked patrol in both daytimes, evenings, and midnights. So I have a variety of different experience there. I've worked in our schools. I was a school resource officer at Osborne High School.
That's a tough job, isn't it?
I will have to say it's tougher now than it was then.
Is that right?
In my understanding of talking with the current SRO and the previous SROs, yeah, it can be very challenging.
Just a lot going on.
But I can tell you that the time that I was the SRO, we had our challenges as well, which kind of gave me an experience of what I like to call what is my North Star now, working with families, working with kids. And I've done various other assignments. I'm on the bike team. I've been on our honor guard team. I was on our SWAT team for 14 years. I'm an evidence tech. So I've done all the stuff. I've dabbled with being a supervisor. That didn't work out too well for me. But again, one thing I do enjoy about the city is that they are vested in their staff. And if you are someone who's dedicated, they're going to take care of you.
Right.
Without, when I say take care of you in a way that they're going to make sure you're following the rules and hold you accountable if you make mistakes.
Sure.
And so I was a supervisor for a while. I was a supervisor from 2010 to 2015. I heard the chief talk about that he kicked the door in.
Yeah.
I'll have to correct him. He didn't kick the door in. I can actually tell you who kicked the door in. He was the rear guard.
He was in the stack.
He was in the stack, and he was very instrumental because I think him and I were the only ones that had entered that particular house that had any firsthand experience of actually going into a situation like that. That situation, as you mentioned, was a pretty serious homicide incident. We had 3 people that had been killed, several people that were injured. And I'll never forget when we entered that house and we had found one of the victims. She was an 87-year-old woman. And the story she told us was just the fact that she had the will to survive was just amazing. And unfortunately, we did find a deceased in the back bedroom. But the chief was instrumental because the 2 other officers that were with us didn't have the experience.
Right.
And for him and I to kind of get them locked in, it was very helpful. So though I know it's not the job of the chief to enter those types of situations, I was thankful to have him.
I bet. And, nothing like an experienced guy, backing you up. I mean, I remember that council meeting vividly. There's a lot of stuff that went by when I was on council. That's just kind of a blur, right? Well, we have a finance committee meeting and we're going to approve more money for the airport because the federal government just pours money into the airports. But we had that meeting. I remember that meeting in detail because I was shocked that he was, working in the field like that. I mean, I don't know what I thought the police department was doing every day. I depended on, the chief and his staff to be the experts in that stuff. I am not a policing expert. But to hear him tell that story, it really surprised me. And and maybe it shouldn't have. I don't know. But I know that when I heard that story, the council needed to get off our ass and fix it. Because that's dangerous, to not have enough of the right people in the right place in a crisis like that. So that was a surprising story.
Yeah, and again, I mean, as those critical incidents like that, they don't happen every day, and we're very fortunate that they don't. But when you have 3 deceased spread out in a very short area, you had 2 deceased within the Georgetown South community, and then 1 across the street. And then you did have a victim that had been grazed, and then you had a subject that was still at large. So there was a
Right.
danger to the public. We were very fortunate that we have a really good relationship with Prince William County. We had gotten really good intel. And again, that takes a lot of resources.
Sure.
I remember that particular night. I was called in early. I was the midnight supervisor. I was called in early. And I called in my guys in early, and I responded to the scene of the initial shooting location over off of Hood. I asked the supervisor that was running that scene, "What do you need?" I was like, "Hey, there's another deceased over here,
right.
over off of I think it was Maury." And I was like, "All right." So I went over there. We secured that scene, and then we had gotten dynamic intelligence that there was another victim that was calling in that believed that the suspect had entered their home and had killed their roommate. And so again, those are these types of situations that you have to make quick decisions. And,
Sure.
And you got resources securing this scene, you got resources securing that scene, and you have 3 people,
Right.
And you have to make a decision. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And as a fairly new supervisor, I had gotten word the chief was coming in. I was like, good, I'll put him in my stack. And I said, "Chief, this is what we're doing." He said, "Sounds like a good plan. Let's go." And, that's the kind of leader that you want. You don't want to sit there and say, "We're going to just sit here and hold," because if we would have sat and hold, we probably would have had 2 deceased victims in that house. So by making entry, we were able to save an 87-year-old woman that, just again, the story that she shared about her experience, and what she did to save herself was just amazing.
The person that was killed was one of them was across Grant, right?
Yes. So,
yeah. I went the next morning. I went to that site. I rode my bike over there, and there was still a lot of stuff on the ground from like the rescue guys and probably you guys. And I mean, I was like, it hit me pretty hard because it was like this is my community. Like one of my people died right there, and that in conjunction with the chief's story, I mean, it really bothered me. Mm-hmm. And I saw, we had to do something to restore the staffing levels to provide, community policing and all that stuff. I wasn't a big believer in that when I got elected, but I was wrong.
Yeah, and I will have to also say, I mean, those particular incidents were very dynamic.
Yeah.
They had to be processed. But the other thing that some people don't realize is the investigation was also going on at the same time. And so once we had cleared that house over off of Bartow, we had reconvened at the police department to kind of start planning our investigation operation. And because again, shortly after we had cleared the house, we had gotten intel that a Prince William County officer had marked out with a vehicle and had detained and stopped the guy. And so again, very dynamic. And so again, we had the guy in custody, and now we had to shift gears to not only doing all the evidence collection that was needed for the case, but now we had the guy in custody, which required an interview.
Sure.
And we had a very good detective that was in charge. He had a ton of experience, Darwin Guyton. Great guy, and did a great job in that case.
Good. One of the things I like to ask people who are, an expert in one thing. I asked Perez, I said, "What's the thing that makes you craziest when it comes to a patient or like maybe something you see on TV?" And he says, his was, he had a couple, but one of them was, and a lot of doctors have this, is WebMD. I've told this story a couple of times, but when the internet wasn't all that old, and I had something that was bothering me. I don't remember what it was. And I searched on WebMD, and my symptoms presented as some rare disease from West Africa or something. And so I panicked, made a doctor's appointment, and I walked in, and my doctor, she said, "So what's going on?" And I said, "Well, I have all of these symptoms, and they match this." And she took a look at it. She folded it in half and ripped it in half and put it in the trash. And she said, "Let's start from the beginning. What's the thing that makes you crazy? Like if it's a police TV show or something, what's the thing that makes you crazy?"
So Yeah, so that's a really great question, and I'm just as guilty as you are. If I'm not feeling well, I don't really want to go to make an appointment, and let me Google it, right, and see what comes up. And now with AI, you can get a lot more information.
Oh yeah.
But as far as for me, law enforcement has undertaken a lot of, I guess, TV shows.
Yeah, lots of TV shows. Law and Order, all
and which are great shows. Don't mind you, I watch them as well.
Right.
I think the chief spoke to this a little bit, the CSI effect, where people think crimes can be solved within an hour episode.
Right.
I always make reference to this because my grandfather made me watch these old shows, but a lot of people don't recall Dragnet or Joe Friday. Just the facts, ma'am, only the facts. But for me, I think is more in line with what you see on YouTube and what you see like Live PD, which kind of gives you a little bit of perspective.
Right.
And again, it's TV still, and they're only going to show you the exciting stuff.
Sure.
Right. They don't show you, or the stuff that's going to get the most clicks, right, or the most likes, right.
That's what the business is.
And the other challenging thing for me, I think, is seeing things that don't give you that full picture of what actually happened. So the thing that kind of chaps me a little bit is not the full picture, right?
Right.
And again, I think that's where body worn cameras, though it comes at a cost.
It does.
And it's not a cheap cost because now it's not so much the equipment itself; it's now the storage of it. Which now
it's expensive.
It thinks about data centers, right? You had to store the data, and you have to keep certain data for a period of time. And so I think it's really. It's those perspectives that doesn't give the whole picture. And I think law enforcement and police departments have to do better at getting that information out, right? When there's a critical incident.
Because even body-worn cameras need context.
Sure. And again, it only gives you 180 view.
Yeah, they're not a panacea. They really aren't. I mean, they're invaluable, right?
They are.
But it's not a panacea. To me, I think about these things, about like what would make me crazy. Like, I'm a nerd, right? So I watch a movie about, and they're like, well, we're just going to hack into wherever. And the guy, 15 seconds later, I'm in control of all the cameras in the building. That's complete BS.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
That makes me crazy.
No, and I would think, and again, it's the fact that, trying to solve a crime within a short period of time. It's just not feasible. And to even actually get to the criminal justice court system within that hour time frame on the Law and Order shows, not even feasible.
Right. Well, and these guys are kicking doors within 15 minutes, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure like there's some paperwork involved.
Oh, there's a lot of paperwork. I will have to say that I share with a lot of our new officers that they think they're going to get into all the exciting stuff. I said you're going to spend about 90% of your time writing reports, which are very important. Which is very important. So I would have to say that the realistic of expectations of the public, right? And again, the public's important in the role that we do as well. We want to be receptive to what their needs are. And so I would say that it's important for us to understand what their expectations of us are. And we need to be honest with them, especially when it comes to court.
Chief talked a lot about that.
And I think that's really where...
I don't think really anybody that hasn't been involved with the system really understands what that looks like. I just don't feel like they do.
So I'll give you an example. You get involved in an accident.
Right.
You are the involved party that's responsible for the accident.
Right.
You go to court. You have two options. You can plead guilty or not guilty. So the courts have done a better job at this. So you, as the person who was struck, doesn't have to come to the first court date.
Right.
So if that person pleads guilty, it's done. It's a matter of being taken care of by the insurance.
Right.
If that person doesn't plead guilty, then rather than you having to sit at 2 court dates, you only have to now sit at 1. So for accidents, we're trying to do better. Or the courts are trying to do better.
Because people just won't show up.
Sure. The other aspects are other cases, and the chief talked about a particular lawnmower case that, that's a real story. Those are real stories. I have several cases.
The lawnmower story?
Yeah, he was talking about in Vienna, a gentleman that he had mentioned that still kind of stays with him, that he had asked this gentleman to come to court 3 times, and the value of the lawnmower was costing him money at work.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the guy who used to live across the street from me who got a DUI on a lawnmower.
No, no. But again, you have to have the citizenry be engaged in the process.
Sure, yeah.
And especially if they're a victim of a crime, you want to be respectful that, they see the process through. But if it's causing the victim, for a better lack of words, more trauma, for example, having to relive the experience again or losing out on potential earnings because he or she has to take off time off of work.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's not easy. And again, sometimes it's issues with the subject not showing up, or sometimes it's defense attorneys trying to play the long game, which is not fair either.
It's not.
And again, because there's such an abundance of cases too, you may not get notice of a continuance until the day of you go to court and you've got your victim there and you have no opportunity to call your victim in advance. So again, it's an imperfect system, but again, I think it's one of those things that we're trying to do better. As I gave the traffic accident as an example, we don't ask the party that was struck to come on the first court date, because if the person pleads guilty, it's done and over with, and that's it. So that's an upside. I do know that the courts are trying to make some headway in that as well. But again, when it comes to crimes against persons, it's really hard to put the victim through that, especially that they have to come to court multiple times.
I've never had to do it, but I imagine that it's pretty rough. And the courts, I feel like they're pretty stacked too. Caseload wise. I was talking to a local attorney this afternoon, and he said, no, I think they built another court room, but they haven't staffed it, I don't think is the deal. But he says, no, we always need more judges. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But, it's all dollars and cents, man.
It is. Yeah, it definitely comes down to dollars and cents. And, it's really hard to keep good police officers, and the chief
I bet, especially in this area, right?
Yeah, and one of the great things that I've been very fortunate of is that the chief has done a really great job of trying to push housing trust initiatives. You may be familiar with the Manassas Housing Trust Fund that we have. He's done some really good work, and I helped him in the early on of writing a research paper on this and getting some data from our staff as to, just some anecdotal stats to how far do you travel? Would you be interested in living in the city?
Right.
Things of that nature. And he's done some really good work with our council, where, there's a program where if you are a police officer, you can apply for a $25,000 grant to help you with housing costs. But I was very fortunate. I took advantage of a federal program here in the city back in 1999. It was called the Officer Next Door program. It was a program ran through HUD. It was an Officer Next Door teacher program. So if you were a teacher or public safety, you could bid on a lottery system for a foreclosed house. And if you won, you got that house. It would be sold to you at market value and then cut in half.
Yeah, I tried, when I did Manassas Next, I tried to get something like that set up for all city employees. And it didn't get wheels with the council. I got most of the other stuff approved, but I didn't get that. And probably at least maybe most of the blame for that was mine, because I had written on this topic some, but I really didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But I'm like, well, why don't we can just help people buy houses. Well, that don't sell in politics. So I tried, but I couldn't get there from here. And that was a while ago too.
Yeah, and I would also say there's added value to that, right? Because I know for me personally, I've lived in my house since 1999. If I was to try to buy another house in the city, I don't think I could.
Same. I couldn't afford to buy my house now.
But again, it also, being someone who works for the police department, I'm vested in the interest of what goes on with the decisions that are made with city council, what goes on in our schools. My daughter went through all the schools. She went to Jenny Dean, she went to Mayfield, she went to Metz, and she went to Osborne. So again, I have firsthand knowledge. When I go into grocery stores or go into restaurants, people, as you said, know who I am.
Yeah.
So again, some officers are okay with that. Some are not. And so if you are okay with it, I do like the fact that we are being progressive in our approach to try to help officers kind of get started.
Yeah.
I know that there's some talk with the city of potentially maybe some future developers by providing some incentives as well. So I like the fact that we're moving forward to give our police officers, and I think the chief had mentioned expanding it to teachers and other city employees, the opportunity, and our firefighters as well, to have an invested interest. Because I think data shows if you're vested in the community and what you
100%.
serve, you're going to contribute twofold. And again, as a lot of people say, well, what's the ROI on that? Well, there's not a lot of ROI, but you have an officer that's dedicated and you have them committed to the community in which they serve. And
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of traditional ROI. That's not a business proposition, right? It's more of an investment kind of thing. You just can't measure that. But having those guys and gals live in the community is invaluable. It really is. I mean, we probably can't afford to do it for everybody, for every city employee, but I think it's important to do.
Yeah, and I would also say that's just one aspect of kind of giving back, or giving back to those who've given back. And another thing that I think that the city is doing really well at is our relationship with the schools. The chief talked briefly about our relationship with the schools during some times that other agencies and other departments were having challenges with their SRO programs. There were school districts telling them to get out of the schools, things of that nature. But the other aspect that I think that the city is very fortunate of is we invest in our schools pretty heavily.
Yeah.
It's over 57% of the dollars. But again, there's a lot of need still. But I think we're making some headways in our CTE program, the Career Technical Education Program, and giving these students opportunities. Eric Godwin, I would definitely encourage you if you can get him on.
I believe I'm related to him.
Okay. Eric's a good guy who helps students with internships and externships and building those relationships with businesses to get those opportunities for kids. I personally participate in our Skills USA kids with the criminal justice program at Osborne. And I think that's where we have a lot of value in being such a smaller city. We have several of our staff members that are graduates from Osborne.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's cool. Something that I think the chief speaks very highly of. You may know Marcus Hyde. Marcus Hyde is an Osborne graduate. He likes to also pin the fact that he's a 2006 state champion with Brandon Hogan and all of them.
Oh, right.
But we have a litany of officers. I mean, the sad part for me, someone who's been a police officer for 27 years, all these guys were students when I was the SRO at Osborne,
right.
Which is kind of funny but not funny.
Yeah.
But again, it just kind of shows that commitment, right? Some of these folks went off to college and then came back and recommitted themselves to being employed here. Some of them even live here locally.
Right. Well, the CTE program, we've had two like swing and a miss. We had selected a person, and in one case she moved in May, so she wasn't available, and the other one, the guy, he had conflicting interests and said, well, I'm not going to do that. But I think that they have done, I first tried to do the CTE thing about 5 years ago, and they came to me and they had a binder of paper that I had to sign and agree to inspections, and I'm like, I have 8 people that work here. I don't have time for this. You guys get out of here with this. This is not serious. They've completely fixed it.
Yeah, so they've definitely streamlined it. And there's different programs and opportunities that they provide students, right? Yeah. So not only do they provide them the internships and the externships, there's also the service learning credits that they can get as well,
right,
which basically is not as taxing on the I call it a mentor. I've done that a few times for students in their career strategy classes, where basically they help me with some of the community programs that I run. They'll basically be volunteers, and then I just write a very short, they showed up on time, they were this, they were that, and then they get their credits for their hours that they need.
Yeah, no, I think they deserve a lot of credit. It's
no.
a very approachable program.
Yeah, Miss Christine Taylor, who's the CT director for the schools, she is phenomenal.
Yeah.
She has an amazing team. Eric Godwin's on the team. Tara Easton's on the team. They're just awesome folks to work with. And they love supporting students. And they love seeing students thrive. I'm super excited because she's forward thinking, and she's already having conversations related to airport operations, airport mechanics, because I am super excited to see what comes forward with the airport. We were talking earlier about, the city buying property. I mean, you think about back in the day when they bought that property, I'm sure it wasn't because we didn't have social media to where everyone had an opinion, but I'm sure there were people against that. But look at it now, the airport itself is self-sufficient. Mr. Rivera is very fortunate. He doesn't, sometimes I think he gives money to the city.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just, so when I first got on council, right, I'm pumped. I've always have been like a middle of the road. I'm a fiscal conservative. That's what I am. I really don't care too much about the social issues. I care about them, but I don't think the government they shouldn't be in people's business like that. I don't like it. We're here to worry about money. And, I start seeing these because I was on the finance committee almost from the start. And I start reading these things and I'm like, we're going to give the airport, like another $5 million. Like, where is this money coming from? This is no way to run a railroad. No, it turns out it's the exact way to run the railroad because it all comes from the feds.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I just read an article. We were getting about, I think it's a little bit over $1.3 million to help with the project at the airport, specifically to help improve the runway and address the bridge issue.
The bridge, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's infrastructure that needs to be taken care of, and I know that I remember, and as you've highlighted in several of your posts, in 2008 was not a good time to be an employee in the city, and it definitely wasn't a good time to be management and city council.
It's a horrible time to be city council.
You had to make tough decisions.
Horrible.
But I do recall that when we had a very short-term city manager, he came with a big ask. And I remember when he went around and did a lot of the town halls at the different schools, he said very clearly that the city's infrastructure had been neglected for a long time, and you're going to have to spend some dollars. Yeah. Unfortunately, with 2008, I think, it created additional challenges for him, and obviously he didn't stay very long. And for whatever reasons, I was not as engaged as I am today versus then. I understand he left for other reasons, but but again, this is one of those things that
it was horrible.
And again, the city has always been, and from my perspective, has always been very fiscally responsible. I know that you and I may agree or disagree with related to some of the purchases.
We agree way more than we disagree.
But again, I also think that we also have to be very careful on how we say things in the space in which we say things.
Yeah.
When you say that the city owns 50% of the city's property, and then you get a report that says something contradictive to that, it really goes against your credibility. Because I saw the report. Yes, there's a large number of things that are owned by the city, but it's city roads, schools, parks. Right. And then when you look at the number of...
I didn't even know there was a debate about this.
And again, not that I'm disagreeing that there needs to be a process. There needs to be transparency. I know that the EDA gets a lot of slack. Not a slack, I guess the word... Heat. But again, those are tough decisions that are being made that are hopefully, and I say hopefully, going to pay off dividends for the city in the future. I know that you've had many conversations related to the big, beautiful parking lot in the center of Old Town and what's going to happen when that turns into a hotel.
Do you know why I hate that the most? I'll tell you. Because it is going to be so hard to get people to agree to get rid of surface parking in Old Town. That's why. Now, we spent a hell of a lot of money on it, and I think a lot of people misunderstand that we had to buy that guy's business.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't just buy the dirt.
Sure.
And then we go with another $130,000 to pave it, but I would not want to be on the city council when you have a public meeting that says, you see that parking lot? We're turning it over, and we'll have a parking deck a block away. I don't know what it is.
But that parking deck's going to have over 800 and plus.
I don't know what it is, and I include myself in this, Greg, about people in suburbia. But there could be a parking deck right in front of them, and they would bitch that there would be no parking because I can't park on the curb. And I'm occasionally guilty too.
Well, I will have to say I saw that firsthand during the 4th of July. I was very fortunate. I was the early shift, so I don't have to. I get to, and plus being a first Friday, I got to be there, do my time, got to go home at 5, take a shower, and watch the fireworks from my back deck. But to your point, I was on bike that day, and I drove around, and I saw that the parking lot in the center of Old Town, where the Old Town Inn used to be, there were a few spots left. And then I drove where there were other additional parking, which was City Hall parking lot, which in the past had not been available because we had deemed it to be VIP parking.
Right.
But we had opened it to the public as well. And there were quite a few spaces left there too. And then, of course, when people were coming, they were challenged by the road blockage and this, that, and the other. But these things we communicate, and again, but sometimes it's hard to find. But I would have to agree to your point. If that parking's not right in front of you, I don't understand because, I don't mind walking. It was a little hot that day, but I also had a bike, so I was good.
Well, but what makes it even more befuddling is, and I'll just use myself as an example. If I want to go downtown and watch a Caps game, park in a parking garage. I'm not going to circle around and then I'm going to walk 4 blocks, which is not all that far, to the arena. But if I'm in suburbia, I don't want to screw with parking decks. I want to park on the street right here. I don't know what it is, but everybody does it.
Well, I would have to say, Andy, you don't live that far from Old Town. I would hope you're walking.
Oh yeah, I would walk there. But it's just when you tell people, well, park in the parking garage. Oh.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And then, of course, when you tell them that this parking is made available for handicap, and they get upset, and then you have to tell them they have to go around, and it's like, it is the 4th of July. I was surprised to hear the number with the data that was collected, 28,000 just in the center of Old Town.
That's unbelievable.
And I know on the purview of the Mets parking lot, the other areas.
They're all full.
Yeah, I mean, they're all full, and for the fireworks display, which is a great fireworks display, to have over 40,000 people in the area, it was a good experience. I'm just, again, glad that I was home at 5.
Yeah, I would be too if I were you. Because after that, it gets a little more complicated.
It does, and again, someone who has not had too many 4th of Julys off, as the chief said, is all hands on deck. Luckily for me, I have a little bit of seniority, and so I get to be the early shift. But I have worked the later shifts where directing traffic. People can be very challenging.
Yeah, well, I mean, people are drunk. They're, it's complicated. What else? I know that you're involved in a lot of extracurricular stuff. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm involved in a little bit of everything. As I mentioned, with the schools, I'm really heavily involved in our criminal justice program because, again, the future generations at the high school with our criminal justice program. We've been very fortunate. We've actually hired a few of the young kids out of that criminal justice program that have become police officers. Some of them are detectives now. So that's a really great investment. I think it's important for me, who's been with the department for so long, to share that experience. I've been very fortunate. I started with the Skills USA program in 2019 with a young man. We won districts. We then won states, and then he went to nationals.
Wow!
And he finished 8th. Then COVID happened, and I kind of stepped away. But then I rejoined the group shortly after everybody returned in person. And I had a young lady who won back-to-back districts, back-to-back states, and she went to nationals twice. She finished the first time 23 out of 36, and then when she went the second time, she finished 11th out of. And then I had
pretty good.
And then this past time, I had a young lady win districts, and then she finished 2nd in states. She didn't get a chance to go to nationals, and so really I enjoy doing that because I think our youth are our future when it comes to this profession. And though I have a way to do it. It's not the only way, but
Right.
but I get to make those relationships. I love spending time with the cattlemen on Saturday morning.
The cattlemen.
But
I don't make many of those meetings anymore because I'm usually down at the river. But
I don't blame you. I think Dr. Prez is with you on that.
yeah, he is. But that's an interesting group of people. And I like going to. I don't make it like when they put the message out like we're going to meet at the clubhouse at 2:00 or whatever. Man, I got to work. I can't go over there and start in at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
We'll have to say if this is an inviting thing for you, they are hoping that Rich will get air conditioning into the carriage house. I think that we've
summer's pretty tough.
Yeah, Jimmy has definitely twisted his arm. He is currently away on vacation, and there's been some chatter about maybe even putting the air conditioning in while he's away. I would not recommend it, but
No.
but again. That's a personal engagement. It really allows me the opportunity to kind of learn more about the city.
Yeah.
I really enjoy listening to your podcast. The couple of guests that you had, obviously, just hearing the stories from Mark Olson about what Manassas used to be and the experiences, and then hearing from some of the others, Jimmy Lunsford. It's a really great opportunity for someone who's not originally from here.
Right.
It's just really great to hear the stories. Ed Spall, like I said, I either like or dislike some of his perspectives, but at least he'll listen to you. I find it to be somewhat enjoyable. Mr. Foote, one of the attorneys, he's quite intelligent, but he's very opinionated.
Well, we should only let one of the lawyers attend at a time.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, it generally works out that way. Rich is generally the convening authority of the group, and then again, as we know, you can only talk about soccer for 30 seconds.
30 seconds, that's it. I also enjoy talking to Ed. I don't know that I always agree with him, but more often than not.
Yeah, and again, some of his perspectives are not far off. I think he's reasonable in what his concerns are. Just like everyone else in the group. But some of the other things that I do a lot of outreach, obviously, with both youth and with both the parents. I
saw badges for baseball. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's a program that's ran out of the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. And, of course, you hear the name Badges for Baseball, and we don't play baseball. But it's what it is the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation has created curriculum through their Department of Justice grant. And basically, it's life social skills, but ultimately, it's really just building relationships and mentoring with some of these kids.
Right.
I've been very fortunate that I've held many sessions at the current area of the Georgetown South with partnership with that community, where I've done, I think, 5 or 6 seasons now.
Oh wow!
So it's in 6-week iterations. Another program that I'm involved in is called the Team Quest Greater Manassas Youth Project, and that's more of a multidisciplinary team approach, and so it's other community partners, Department of Social Services, the Court Services Unit, nonprofits, and we basically provide kids between the ages of 13 and 17 opportunities that they may not be afforded the opportunity, and take them out their social and economic boundaries. We just did a really great experience this past week. We took them to D.C.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a fan of going into D.C., but we choose good times so that we can get around. But we took them to the Tidal Basin and basically put 4 kids in a boat, had them paddle around for an hour. They took in the sights. You just saw these kids' face. They were just like in awe. And then because you want to take advantage of being in D.C. And because of my military background, I think it's important to give back and at least share that. A lot of people are not aware that during the summer, both the Army and the Marine Corps put on summer shows.
Yeah.
On Tuesday nights during the summer at the Iwo Jima, the Marine Corps 8th and 9th team come out and they do a really great performance.
Oh, wow.
But on Wednesday nights, the Army does a similar type of show called the Twilight Tattoo. That is a great show. And it's even better when it's indoors, especially in the summer.
In the summertime.
Yeah, because again, when you're trying to plan and do some logistics on these things, weather in the summertime is always that
X factor.
X factor, exactly. Yeah. And so the Army had made the call that morning that they're going to make it indoors, and I was very thankful of that because we had been an hour out paddling. But the experience was awesome for these kids. I mean, the kids' face when they got to see the Pershing Zone come out, the fife and drum. Their silent drill team, though I'm a little envious the Marine Corps is better, but I'm just saying. But again, they do some really cool stuff. And then at the end is what I think I've always enjoyed, and I've done this activity with the Army Tattoo 3 times now with different groups. But the kids actually get to go down and interact with the soldiers, and they loved it. And because they're also special guests that come to these things, they're invited by the generals or the special guests. At that particular one on this past Wednesday, it was Chief Warrant Officer 5's dedication, and so there was a lot of Chief Warrant Officer 5s there. Right. But there were different generals from different countries there, foreign military people.
That's pretty neat.
So the kids really, just listening to them talk about, they got to talk to a general from XX country, and it's like, okay, and it's really cool. And so this coming week, we're actually doing a community service day where the kids will be broken into different groups. One group will go to Metz Middle School. They'll work on the community garden. They'll be painting a shed that was put together by the adaptive students from Osborne.
Right.
They'll be doing a food drive at the Giant, and a portion of that food is actually going to support an event that's being held at the Harris Pavilion on the 27th. And then another group is going to be doing some landscaping out at the Willing Warriors campus.
Right.
So again, that's a really great event, a really great project that I'm also involved in. But one that's really kind of been of interest and has really gotten a lot of popularity with our department and actually national is our Parent E3 series. And so that's kind of like a workshop style, community forum style, where we identify specific topics that we think that are of interest, ranging from school chronic absenteeism to internet safety to gang awareness, human trafficking awareness, youth violence and mitigation strategies, substance awareness, and then we've also do mental health. This year, one of the new topics that I'm adding is youth problem gambling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a thing?
It is. Believe it or not, it is a thing. I'll have to send you the PowerPoint that the prevention supervisor just recently did. I kind of the same thing, but if you think about fantasy football, you think about the games some of our kids are playing, we are nurturing them to become future gamblers.
Well, and there's gambling ads. And I hate it. I listen to sports radio. It's 50% gambling ads. If you sign up now, we give you $150 free dollars, and you just gamble it away. We don't care. And it's in the TV broadcast. It's in the radio stuff. It's of course heavy on the internet, and. I know it's probably paying for a lot of, costs for the teams or whatever, but I don't love how pervasive it's become.
Yeah.
I got no fight with it.
I understand.
I don't love how pervasive
but it's just like anything else with things that us as adults are sometimes challenged with. A lot of times the industry is also earmarked or marketed towards kids.
Yeah.
So when you look at the vaping issues, I think this school year, vaping's still going to be a concern, but now you have pouches now, so where there's no vaping smoke that comes up anymore. Now you
Skull bandits.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Oh, those have been a thing for a long time. I'm surprised they're still that popular.
Well, they've come back because they reinvented it in a way that markets it for the people that are hooked on nicotine. And one of the other projects, and again, like I need more projects, right?
Yeah.
Another project that I'm involved in is part of a Rotary project. So this is not necessarily associated with my full-time job, but sometimes I try to make it align a little bit.
Yeah.
But I have to also be very careful. But I'm part of Rotary. I'm in the Impact Club. but I partnered with a gentleman out at the Gainesville Haymarket Rotary Club who had applied for a grant to get a mobile family resource center. And so he got some investors. He purchased a 32-foot RV. We got it wrapped, and we actually bring direct and indirect services to communities. We've held many events at Colonial Village. We've done some events. We've done some events at the East End and Manassas mobile home parks.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a unique way of bringing direct services to the community. We've done food events. We've done service provider events, and so that's really a really great experience. It kind of lends to the mission of Rotary, service above self.
Yeah.
And it provides an opportunity for families to not have to come to us. We're meeting them where they're at.
Right.
And it's force multiplying opportunities. We'll do a food event where we're giving out food. We'll do backpacks where we're giving out school backpacks. But we're also giving out other service-related things. Northern Virginia Family Services information about some of the programs they may have. We may connect them with other nonprofits that are doing some things. So, like I said, I don't have too many free moments.
No, you don't. That's a lot.
Yeah. My wife's not always very happy with me when I say, hey, when she says, what's your schedule look like this week? I said, I'm available on Sunday.
Right.
I tend to try to keep my Sundays free.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this Sunday I'm actually going to be dunked in a dunk tank.
Is that right?
With the food drive-in at the Harris Pavilion from 11 to 1.
Cool. So that is this weekend?
It is.
11 to 1.
11 to 1. It's a food drive. It's a women's group out of I apologize for not knowing the name. It's the Women That Wine, or something like that. It's a Facebook group that has created a cause, and it's Prince William Hunger Free is their drive. They actually, if you go through Old Town, there's a
banner right now.
green banner, and so myself. Marcus Hyde's going to be in the dunk for 20 minutes. I saw a couple of other elected officials.
Oh.
I saw Ian Lovejoy's going to be there. So if you want to,
Ian's always down for that.
yeah. So and then the project also is to bring awareness to the food insecurity, and also to have people donate food that will be redistributed to some of the local food pantries.
Right. All right. Cool. Well, I think that about covers it.
Yeah. Did I go longer than the chief?
I don't know. That was a long one.
All
I'll have
right.
to look and see. But thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah.